This hero's secret power was his unshaved hair. But how did he lose it? Let me explain. Once upon a time, there was a man named Samson. He was the strongest man in the world because of a sacred vow that he made to God. But he had one fatal flaw. He was weak for the wrong woman, and because of his weakness, he was betrayed. How was the world's strongest man defeated by a simple lie? Keep watching to find out. In the Bible, the first book of Samuel, chapters 13 through 31, Samson was born to a barren woman named Manoah. And as soon as he was born, God spoke to his parents. The razor shall not be put to his head, for the child is dedicated to God from the womb to be a Nazirite. Now, what's a Nazirite? Someone who is consecrated to God with special rules they have to follow. And the key rule for Samson was he wasn't allowed to cut his hair. His uncut hair was the sign of his covenant with God, and it was also the source of his divine power. And let me tell you, Samson needed all the power he could get. After the death of his father, Samson began traveling around and doing mighty exploits in the name of the Lord. One time a lion attacked him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands. Another time, he fought against 1,000 men and killed them all with the jawbone of a donkey. That's right, a donkey. And sometimes he would carry the city gates right over to his home in Gaza. It was quite an impressive resume. But Samson was impulsive, and his great strength was balanced by a great weakness, a weakness for Philistine women. You see, the Philistines hated Israel, and Samson would do all these crazy feats just to embarrass them. But he also really liked their women, like this one woman named Delilah. She was a Philistine, and she became the apple of Samson's eye. Now the Philistine lords heard that Samson had fallen in love with Delilah, so they went to her and said, "We will pay you 1,100 pieces of silver if you can find out what his secret is and how he does all these impossible feats." And Delilah agreed. You know, she turned Samson's affection into a weapon. For 3 days straight, she begged Samson to tell her his secret, but he refused. Finally, on the 3rd day, she wore him down, and as he slept, she called for someone to shave off his hair. Then she got up, went to the Philistine lords, and told them what had happened. They gave her even more money, and then they took Samson to their stronghold. There they seized him, gouged out his eyes, and forced him to grind grain in a prison. And as a prisoner, Samson was no longer the world's strongest man. Instead, he was a broken, humiliated man. But while he was in prison, something interesting happened. Samson's hair began to grow. Delilah had only shaved off the visible hair, but Samson's Nazirite vow applied to all the hair on his body, including what grew underneath. So the hair under his skin kept growing and growing until he looked like a hairy monster. One day the Philistines decided to parade him around in their cities, especially in the city of Gaza, where he had carried off the city gates. As they paraded him through the streets of Gaza and the temple of Dagon, they mocked him and taunted him. And that's when Samson began to pray. He prayed for one last chance to defeat the Philistines, and God granted that request. Samson pushed the 2 main pillars that held up the temple and brought the whole thing crashing down on himself and thousands of his enemies. So how did Samson lose his power? Simple, by getting his hair cut. But there's another lesson hidden in this story. Even though Samson failed as a judge of Israel and messed up his mission, God still allowed him to finish his assignment. No failure is final when we turn back to God. What stands out to you? Is it the fact that Samson had a secret power in his hair, or the fact that he could fail but still get a second chance? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.